Merry Christmas and welcome along to another edition of MesmePolitics. My name is Tabula Patti Mesme and we are with you every single day at 7 o'clock in the evenings UK time, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a leftist perspective. And today is no different. We are absolutely live, talking to you on the 25th of December, Christmas Day 2020. Let's see what Santa's got in his sack for us.
Prepare to die.
Admittedly, it's been a slower news day than we've been experiencing. I'm sure it'll all be back to normal by Boxing Day, but as for today, noticeably less hectic, put it that way. Sure, there's stuff going on, but much like during the Great War, the headlines and the conflicts and the battles have basically stopped for the day, besides a few people calling each other racists on Twitter and a few people being racists on Twitter. In other news, in the space of the last 24 hours, I've discovered that you can tweet using voice notes. And if you know anything about me, you know that now I know I can tweet using voice notes, literally tweet out little clips of my voice. Then anyone who's following me on Twitter, please do, at TobyJoshuaUK. Anyone who's following me on Twitter is now going to be subjected to several voice notes an hour at this rate. You know, this is how I roll. And yeah, please do follow me on Twitter. Anyway, don't normally plug my Twitter, I promise.
You will be eliminated.
Get in touch at any point between now and 7:30 in the chat. Come say hello. On today's show, we compare, for a bit of Christmas fun, main political leaders' Christmas messages and who wins, who comes out on top out of Starmer, Johnson, Trump and Biden in terms of Christmas messaging. Nothing else, just the messaging. We'll delve into the meat of Johnson's Brexit deal. How should the left respond? Should we be on the side of rejoin? Should we be making a success of Brexit? Should we be looking for a Norway-style agreement? And just how much of the 2016 referendum promises has this deal delivered? We discuss. But we start today with the battle lines of 2021. They are already being drawn, the political battle lines of 2021. Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer will be vying this year for the crown of political hegemony in Britain. We closed out 2019 with the Tories seemingly unassailable. They had won a record-shattering majority, not seen since the days of Margaret Thatcher, and they looked on course to dominate British politics, with Labour as nothing but an irrelevant gnat on the fringe for the best part of the next decade or more. They had at least the next two general elections, and maybe one after that, in the bag. Then, coronavirus hit. Coronavirus has obviously been the defining story of 2020, and it has set the calculus of British politics on its head, making the previously impossible seem altogether possible. The question, of course, is, how possible? How much has it actually changed? How far have we actually deviated from where we were politically as a country at the end of 2019? With the Tories riding high in the polls, amassing something resembling a 15-point lead, and an opposition in disarray, with one of the least popular leaders, by that point, in decades. So, Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer will define 2021 politically. What are their strengths going into 2021? What are their weaknesses going into 2021? I will make this bold projection here. Who is on top at the end of 2021 has a very good shot of remaining or being the next Prime Minister, right? So, if Labour are doing amazingly at the end of 2021 and they've been leading in the polls for a year, that's a good indication that we've all been pessimistic and Keir Starmer's going to be the next PM, win the next election. If the Tories scrape through, then and they're relatively unscathed, maybe a new leader, maybe not, then we can be pretty much assured that they have at least the next election in the bag, and that their hegemony of British politics will continue unabated after this coronavirus disaster. That tribalism and faux, white van man patriotism will have won the day. We will see. As for Boris Johnson, he's the man with the most to lose and arguably the most to gain from this year. Prime Minister, leader of the Conservative Party. As we all know, he has quite a few pros in his court right now. He's just secured a Brexit deal, and whatever we analyse out of that Brexit deal, whatever we think of that Brexit deal, that is an undeniable success. That, we know he played the journalists like a fiddle. We know this deal was there to be struck months ago, but it looks like a last-minute achievement. All media outlets and newspapers are trumpeting it as a huge achievement. It has bent the main opposition party to the will of the Vote Leave cabal that took over Downing Street in June 2019, June 2019, that's when it was, when Johnson became Prime Minister. And, it's defined political debate. The government can now say we delivered on the referendum, we respected democracy, and on top of all that, we actually, they were elected to deliver a hard Brexit, and they delivered a hard Brexit. By the way, sorry, Johnson came to office on the 24th of July 2019, my mistake. So they have that, and don't underestimate that. The effects of a hard Brexit will not be as immediately catastrophic as those of a no-deal Brexit, and it will be baked into the COVID recession. They can easily get away with any side effects of that. Don't forget, sovereignty has a price for many voters that, shortages of baked beans or whatever really do not. It don't carry the same weight. And realistically, this is sunny uplands for Johnson. This could easily boost him back to a poll lead, right? The Brexit deal is done. Johnson has done the politically smart thing. This is a huge, huge, huge boost for the Tories, and something they can still brag about going into the next general election. Johnson also has a vaccine rollout. If that vaccine rollout works, then the cobwebs of misery will be swept away. And all the horrors of this year and all the failings of the government's coronavirus response up to this point will probably be forgotten by a more forgiving public, as Boris Johnson can be happy Boris, bear the tidings of good news, and, the environment will be perfectly suited to his brand of politics. It'll be like a reset button. We'll be back to where we were at the end of 2019. Johnson will have saved his premiership, self-preserved his party, and on he will go onto an election win in 2024, with or without him. His party will secure it. There are weaknesses, though. There are points Johnson can fall down. Number one is, if this drags out longer and longer, the coronavirus response begins to look more and more like the Black Wednesday moment, right? It will stick. There'll be a stink of scandal, of incompetence that will just reek from the government. People will forever associate the government with that and those headlines, and they'll be turfed out. Provided the opposition doesn't offend anyone, they'll be turfed out. Wholly plausible. And, of course, and then when there is good news, it won't be able to overcome that stink, which is what happened with the Major government in the 1990s. No matter what good news came towards the end of Major's term, and, just before the Tony Blair landslide, it wouldn't have mattered because the damage was done. You could do whatever you like in those last 6 months, but Tony Blair would have won in a landslide no matter what. Again, the economy collapsing and lack of a coherent Tory message, return to something more like austerity, material conditions overriding the desire for culture wars, all things that could really, this could be the year Johnson revives his political prospects and the political prospects of his party, but it could also be the year that they're finished off. It's more likely to revive them, but equally entirely plausible that this is, this year becomes the end of the line. If things are looking dire for the Tories, December 2021, I'll be much more bullish about Labour's electoral prospects. And of course, we'll see what happens in the local elections, which will be an interesting referendum on the government. Keir Starmer, of course, stands the most to gain from government failings here, and Keir Starmer is the kind of leader of the opposition who looks the part of a stereotypical prime minister, and if he just sits still, doesn't say much, may benefit from the government falling to pieces around him. Keir Starmer can propose a compelling alternative vision, make the argument that only Labour can deliver a new, fairer settlement, put real meaning into take back control, unite their coalition of Leavers and Remainers after Brexit, and overcome those divides and basically sort of wash out the Tory party with a message of renewal, revival, and that lingering feeling that maybe Labour are better to do this in an egalitarian way. Maybe the Tories will sort of leave us shafted economically and just do more cuts. That, you could see that happening. The sort of 1945 play when Churchill was very popular, could easily have won the election. Labour turfed him out because they made the case most compellingly for a radical redistribution and a new economic settlement. Starmer's best bet is to propose such a thing and roll it out this year, off the back of the coronavirus crisis. Equally, contrast in leadership, maybe people want someone more sensible. Biden beat Trump. That's there. Starmer's cons are, of course, the party is very publicly divided. The Tories have always been divided, but Labour's divisions are very public. He's at war with the left flank of his party. He's acted in bad faith and duplicitously within his party. And at the same time, he's surrounded by people who'd rather bully Jeremy Corbyn than win the next election. And the simple fact of the matter is, Labour cannot win a general election without, if not the cooperation of, the goodwill of the left. If the left are up in arms about you, you can't win an election because that's a huge, huge integral part of the party base. What happens when parties piss off their bases? They lose elections. Keir Starmer needs to realise that. He needs to realise this isn't the 1990s. He isn't Neil Kinnock. And even if he is Neil Kinnock, let me remind you, Neil Kinnock lost 2 general elections, including one that should have been a slam dunk. You don't want to be an Ed Miliband, you don't want to be a Neil Kinnock, you want to be an Attlee or a Blair. And you can't be a Blair because third way politics is dead, so you need to be an Attlee. And Attlee did not wage war on the left of the party. He just didn't. You might not have agreed with them on everything, but he didn't wage war on them, and that's... I can work with a Keir Starmer who leaves us alone, doesn't bully us, and sort of just gets on with producing a compelling vision, making a couple of compromises here or there. That's not what we're heading for. We're heading for full triangulation. And that's what will be the end of Starmer. That, the government doing well, and Labour basically falling flat on the public and just sort of descending back into irrelevance. That's the risk for Labour in 2021, but we will see. We now want to talk about the Brexit deal. So Boris Johnson, of course, on Christmas Eve, signed a deal that would take us out of the European Union decisively in January. Brexit is over. The divide is over. The battle is over. We did it. We did it in an extremely not cohesive, very contrived, brutally aggressive, useless, feckless, ridiculous way. But we left. That's it. We're leaving. It's over. Can we stop talking about a people's vote now? Can we stop rewriting the history of the referendum? And can we actually talk about a vision of a post-Brexit Britain? That's what we should be doing. That's what I would say is the only credible course of action to take. If we rerun the referendum, if we rerun the battles that ensued over the referendum, we are begging for political oblivion. What are the changes this deal imposes? So, effective immediately, there'll be no more freedom of movement of people. and hence EU nationals no longer have freedom to work, study, start a business, or live in the EU. This is obviously a policy I disagree with this. It is, we live in a world of borders, however not ideal that is. We've left the EU. The government have made much of their case on whipping up xenophobia and bigotry towards migrants. Therefore, of course, this was always going to happen. And yeah, a sad day in a sense that we can't travel around Europe. What's not to love about that? UK goods will no longer benefit from free movement of goods, so this will mean more regulations for businesses and adjustments in EU-UK supply chains. That'll be increased customs formalities, checks on UK goods, VAT. But Johnson said it would enable UK goods to be sold without tariffs or quotas in the EU market, allowing UK companies to do even more business with the continent. I think even more business with the continent is very rich. As the most sort of over-the-top, ridiculous statement I've ever heard. If your focus was doing free trade with the EU, you'd stay in the EU, right? My focus isn't free trade with the EU, which is why I don't want to stay in the EU. But if that was really your biggest passion, then you'd stay in the EU, the free trade bloc that is Europe, right? So there'll be, this is why many elements of the business community remain opposed to Brexit. They're happy with a hard Brexit they would have cringed at mere years ago, 12 months ago, but because, no deal was dangled in front of them, they'll shut up and put up with this. And one benefit, if the pound goes down, right, that means exporting things. We don't have much to export. We need things to export, but exports will be easier. And that's, of course, good. And it may indeed prevent excessive influx of things that pollute our economy, cheaper goods, etc., etc. It's very much a hit against globalisation. The UK gave ground on fisheries, huge ground on fisheries, basically sold out on the issue of fisheries. We no longer participate in or shape rules of EU agencies for police and judicial cooperation, and no longer benefit from privileged cooperation amongst police and judicial authorities. People make a lot of noise out of this. The usual national security type stuff that people talk about. That's what's happening. As of January the 1st, British laws will be made solely by the British Parliament, interpreted by British judges, sitting in UK courts, and the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice will come to an end. It's good in the sense that we now have more democratic control over our laws and our ability to affect things. It is not so good that the people in power have pretty sinister intentions with this type of power, but at least they're democratically elected, put it that way. We no longer participate in the EU internal energy market that ensures more efficient, cheaper, more secure supplies of electricity, gas and oil, or the EU emissions trading scheme. We're no longer part of the European Atomic Energy Community, Euratom. We cannot trade nuclear material and technology with Euratom. Oh dear, I'm so sad I can't trade nuclear materials with Europe. EU funding programmes such as Next Generation UK, aimed at speeding up the EU's collective recovery from COVID pandemic, will no longer benefit the UK. Moreover, the UK is excluded from, quote, sensitive and high security projects or contracts. Look, put it this way. There are key breaches with the EU here. This is a hard Brexit. Johnson's made various trade-offs, but we are, from the perspective of someone who wants to distance themselves as much as possible from the EU, if that's what you're in for, right, that's what you're getting. We are distancing ourselves from many of those institutions. In some cases, that's good. In some cases, it's either neither here nor there, or could be damaging, but that's what we're getting. It is welcome in the sense we're departing from a neoliberal free trading bloc that's inflicted damage on much of southern Europe. There's basically been a get-rich-quick scheme for wealthy elites in Germany. Johnson rolled over he's been shafted by the EU on many issues, including fisheries, which is one of the things where there is, there's a fairness argument there. Why should Euro mega corporations decimate UK waters? Again, if we're just doing that in order to help massive UK conglomerates, there's not really any point. Overfishing is the biggest problem in all this. We have given away lots of ground on this supposed signature issue. We've clawed a little bit back. The more broader issue we need to address is the issue of overfishing. Period. The con of this deal, which is, as a progressive economist on the show yesterday said, it is a woeful deal, is it paves the way for a race to the bottom. With the power to raise standards and create a progressive economy off the back of a hard Brexit, there is also the potential to have a race to the bottom in standards, in wages, and in workers' rights. That's what Jeremy Corbyn warned about. That is, the bogged down negotiations, the selling off of the NHS, etc., etc., were all tacit references to the race to the bottom that could, and this doesn't necessarily mean it will, but could ensue, and the Tories would certainly be sympathetic to bringing about such a thing. It's a minimal deal. It is self-defeating from the perspective that it will hit the British economy. It will hit many of the sectors that are already on their knees because of COVID. In that respect, Johnson, who's supposedly, a fiscal conservative, he's not really, is he? It's self-defeating from that perspective. Margaret Thatcher is turning over in her grave. Do we agree with Margaret Thatcher? No. But Margaret Thatcher would be turning over in her grave. Leftists need the left, progressives, all forces in the UK of that ilk should not be making the case to rejoin the EU. They should be making the case because there's no vision, there's no government vision for what we do now, other than utters about some sort of fantastical Anglosphere and where we're going to trade and more trade deals that'll have a negligible impact on the economy after Brexit. The left needs to make the case that, look, this isn't working, not rejoin, the case for a radical overhaul of the economy. I'm going to keep hammering this. Post-Brexit. A post-Brexit British economy that has higher standards, that has a mixed economy of public services, public industries, private industries, private projects, a functional, thriving, socially democratic answer to post-Brexit Britain, as opposed to the anarcho-capitalist paradise that the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nigel Farage have wet dreams about when they think of a hard Brexit. There are two polar opposites who wanted Brexit. The left, socialists, and the most depraved and sinister aspects of predatory capital. Both of those forces were on the same side. Both of those forces are now going to fight out for what the settlement is post-Brexit, and the negligent forces are winning. It always looked like they were going to win, but they're in a position of great power. And only by pushing back against that is there any hope of securing the sort of settlement post-Brexit that you and I would want to see. But it's not looking good. It never was. But it is a good thing that we're leaving an organisation as hostile and as anti-progressive as the European Union. The solution to that isn't closer ties with Europe, it's a reset and a new approach. And obviously not one any Tory government will usher in. Now, on to world leaders' Christmas messages. We'll be listening to Boris Johnson's Christmas message, Keir Starmer's Christmas message, Donald Trump's Christmas message, Joe Biden's Christmas message, and we'll see who wins out of all of them. First, this is Johnson's Christmas message.
At the end of this extraordinary year, I want to say something about the meaning of Christmas, because I've never known a Christmas like it, not in my lifetime, and I bet not in yours either. And in most years, it's a moment for togetherness and celebration in which the generations are jumbled together in the same household for days on end, pulling crackers, snogging under the mistletoe, you name it. And yet this year, that is the one type of Christmas we simply cannot afford to have. And it grieves me because I think everyone hoped and prayed, I certainly did, that things could be, if not normal, then as normal as possible for as many families as possible. And yet, we have had to confront the reality of the new strain of COVID of great joy, because this is a deal to give certainty to business and travellers and all investors in our country from the 1st of January, a deal with our friends and partners in the EU. You remember the oven-ready deal by which we came out on January the 31st? That oven-ready deal was just the start of this is the feast, full of fish, by the way. And I believe it will be the basis of a happy and successful and stable partnership with our friends in the EU for years to come. So that's it. That's the good news from Brussels. Now for the sprouts, and a happy Christmas to you all.
That's Boris Johnson there with a snippet of his Christmas message. We can't do the full message because of time, but that's some of the highlights. It's a lot of, Johnsonian bullshit, but we have to remember a lot of people find that highly amusing. I mean, you do crack a smile, don't you? It's ridiculous. It's un-prime ministerial, but, people always say, oh, Boris, he'd be a laugh down the pub. I mean, it's true. That's his selling point. Now Keir Starmer, the polar opposite.
I want to wish you all a very happy Christmas. It's a time to celebrate and come together with our family and friends. It's a time for Christians in Britain and across the world to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. The values of Christianity, of generosity, of kindness and hope have shone through this year. In every village, every town and every city, we've seen the very best of Britain. And I know how difficult this period will be without them. To all of those families, to all of you in isolation, my thoughts are with you all. This year has been like no other, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccine will be distributed. The spread of the virus will slow. Businesses will reopen. And we will recapture the spirit that has got us through the pandemic and rebuild a better future for our country. So wherever you are, and however you're celebrating, stay safe, have a very Merry Christmas, and I look forward to seeing you in the new year.
That's Keir Starmer there. My problem with Keir Starmer is I don't feel a human connection. The words are nice. It's still wooden. And every time he speaks about something, it feels grovelly, right? Like he's being awkward but grovelly at the same time. Like no matter what religious festival or event or commemoration it is, it sounds like he's trying too hard. He's like, the values of Christmas. It's like he's overemphasizing it. And maybe he just needs to loosen up a bit. Say the same stuff, just in a little bit of a more relaxed way. There is the danger of overlearning. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn wasn't formal enough. We're going to be really formal and script every word we say. That's really a mistake. You've got to remember there are elements of Jeremy Corbyn's personality that did really well with the public, especially on the campaign trail in the 2017 election. Keir Starmer wouldn't have had that late surge because he doesn't have that affable sort of, look, he's quite chill sort of personality. Need to work on that. Alter your personality, Starmer, and that'll be better. Let's have a listen to Trump and Melania's message.
Treatments and vaccines.
We are delivering millions of doses of a safe and effective vaccine that will soon end this terrible pandemic and save millions and millions of lives. We're grateful for all of the scientists, researchers, manufacturing workers, and service members who have worked tirelessly to make this breakthrough possible. It is truly a Christmas miracle.
During this wonderful time of year, we also give thanks for the brave and selfless Americans who keep us safe. We are forever grateful for the men and women of law enforcement and the heroes.
As you can see, that's just teleprompter, isn't it? Now the Bidens. Oh, try that again. Now the Bidens.
The family gatherings as well this year.
Even as our celebrations are dimmed, we know that this won't be forever, and brighter days are coming soon. On this holy day, we remember that love and joy can be shared across the farthest distances. We celebrate apart, but not alone, and look forward to next year, when we can come together with renewed appreciation for the people and the traditions we love.
So from our family to yours,
Merry Christmas and
happy holidays. And what we're called to do for one another. Many of our fellow Americans are struggling to find work, literally put food on the table, pay their rent or their mortgage. We're reminded we're on this earth to care for one another, to give what we can, and to be a source of help and hope to friend and stranger alike.
Many families are facing their first Christmas, having lost a loved one.
So there you go. That's the Bidens. It's sort of the trademark Joe Biden's skill, politically, isn't it? There's a huge contrast in Joe Biden's style and the style of the rest of them. So Trump and Johnson are idiots. Starmer, still quite wooden. No, improving. Someone says they thought you sounded really genuine. Maybe it's just me. Biden does sound genuine. Couldn't tell you if he's being genuine, but he does sound compelling and genuine. And, I mean, he's used to it. He's far more used to it than Keir Starmer. But Biden wins that. If I set aside all politics, because I'm definitely more politically aligned with Keir Starmer than Joe Biden. But, you know, out of all that, Biden's message was the most authentic and compelling and just on a human level sounded the most convincing, I would say. You know, if I had no idea who these people are, I'd be like, I quite like that one. Of course, I do know who these people are, so I don't quite like Joe Biden. Now, that's about it from me today. Thank you for joining me on MesmePolitics. Get in touch in the chat with your thoughts on anything we've discussed. We will be back with you at 7 p.m. tomorrow for your Boxing Day edition of MesmePolitics. Christmas Day 2020. We've been bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a leftist perspective, and we will keep on doing it. We will keep offering analysis from a perspective and in a tone that no one else quite hits. No one else quite provides it in the same way.
Prepare to die.
And I don't like to ask too much of you, but please do recommend this to a friend. If you have a friend who you think would be interested in this sort of stuff or might learn from it, first of all, you subscribe, turn notifications on so you're notified when we go live, so you're reminded. But second of all, get them to subscribe. Make them watch one of these things. We want to grow our audience, so please share it with a friend, one of your political friends, right? Just get it, or non-political but open to hearing things friends. You know, if you've got a friend who just listens to loads of podcasts, stick this on there.
Welcome to a whole new world.
That's what we need. That's really what we need. And I'd very much appreciate it. I hope you've had, went a bit Biden there. Hope you've had a good Christmas. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. It's not over yet, don't worry. Although, you know, this is basically the point where, as kids, you'd have a temper tantrum because the presents are gone and it's all over. But no, I'm looking forward to the weird, slumbery gap between Christmas and New Year as we usher in 2021. I did consider taking a day off from this on Christmas Day, but in the end I decided I'd rather actually do it and just keep at it. Maybe if this thing gets way more successful, I'll take such luxuries as a day off on Christmas Day, but actually I found it quite refreshing. You know, going about my normal business on Christmas Day, prepping the show, and in between all that, eating chunks of fudge and feeling sick. A bit of red wine, you know. What you gotta do. All combined. It's a great combination. Radio show, planning, sweets, drinks, turkey. Still the driest meat out there, by the way. But for Christmas, I can live with it. Have a great rest of your Christmas, have a great Boxing Day, and join us as you are curled up on the sofa with the Boxer Quality Street for your Boxing Day evening at 7 o'clock. Subscribe, turn notifications on. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme, and this is MesmePolitics.